I always thought a verruca was a type of wart you got on the bottom of your foot.
I walk as a group. I love the chocolate.
I can see that. So do I. I never expected to have so much in common.
Good morning everyone, and a very warm welcome back to Online Storytime. My name is Mr. F. We hope you have had an amazing time over the Easter weekend, eating lots of scrumptious chocolate. Today we're going to continue reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and we've reached chapter number 14. So please do get your books and read along with us. Otherwise, sit back, chill, and enjoy. Chapter number 14, Mr. Willy Wonka. Mr. Wonka was standing all alone just inside the open gates of the factory. And what an extraordinary little man he was. He had a black top hat on his head. He wore a tailcoat made of beautiful plum-coloured velvet. His trousers were bottle green, his gloves were pearly grey, and in one hand he carried a fine gold-topped walking cane, which today is a golf club. Covering his chin, there was a small, neat, pointed black beard, a goatee, and in his eyes were most marvellously bright. They seemed to be sparkling and twinkling at you all of the time. The whole face, in fact, was alight with fun and laughter. And oh, how clever he looked! How quick and sharp and full of life. He kept making quick, jerky little movements with his head, cocking it this way and cocking it that way, and taking everything in with those bright, twinkling eyes. He was like a squirrel in the quickness of his movements, like a quick, clever old squirrel from the park. Suddenly, he did a funny little skipping dance in the snow. And he spread his arms wide and he smiled at the 5 children who were clustered near the gates, and he called out, "Welcome, my little friends. Welcome to the factory." His voice was high and fluty. "Will you come forward one at a time, please," he called out, "and bring your parents. Then show me your golden ticket and give me your name. Who's first? Who's first?" The big fat boy stepped up. "I am Augustus Gloop," he said. "Augustus!" he cried, Mr. Wonka, seizing his hand and pumping it up and down with terrific force. "My dear boy, how good to see you! Delighted, charmed, overjoyed to have you with us. And these are your parents? How nice! Come in, that's right, step through the gates." Mr. Wonka was clearly just as excited as everyone else. "My name," said the next child to go forward, "is Veruca Salt." "Oh, my dear Veruca, how do you do? What a pleasure this is. An interesting name. I always thought that a verruca was a sort of wart that you got on the sole of your foot. But I must be wrong, mustn't I? How pretty you look in that lovely mink coat. I'm so glad you could come. Dear me, this is going to be such an exciting day. I do hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you will. I know you will. Your father, how are you? Mr. Salt and Mrs. Salt? Overjoyed to see you. Yes, the ticket is quite in order. Please do go in." next two children, Violet Beauregard and Mike TV, came forward to have their tickets examined. Their arms practically pumped off their shoulders by the energetic Mr. Wonka. And last of all, a small, nervous boy whispered, Charlie Bucket, Charlie Bucket. Charlie, cried Mr. Wonka. Well, 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 so there you are. You're the one who found your ticket only yesterday, aren't you? Yes, I read all about it in the morning papers. Just in time, my dear boy. I'm so glad. So happy for you. And this, your grandfather? Delighted to meet you, sir. Overjoyed, enraptured, enchanted. All right, excellent. Is everybody in now? 5 children? Yes, good. Now, will you please follow me? Our tour is about to begin, but do keep together. Please don't wander off by yourselves. I shouldn't like to lose any of you at this stage of the proceedings. Oh, dear me. No. Charlie glanced back over his shoulder and saw the great iron gates slowly closing behind him. The crowds on the outside were still pushing and shouting. Charlie took a last look at them. Then, as the gates closed with a clang, all sight of the outside world disappeared. Here we are, cried Mr. Wonka, trotting along in front of the group. Through this big red door, please. That's right, it's nice and warm inside. I have to keep it warm inside the factory because of the workers. My workers are used to an extremely hot climate. They can't stand the cold. They'd perish if they went outdoors in this weather. They'd freeze to death. But who are these workers? Asked Augustus Gloop. All in good time, my boy, said Mr. Wonka, smiling at Augustus. Be patient. You shall see everything as we go along. Are all of you inside? Good. Would you mind closing the door? Thank you. Charlie Bucket found himself standing in a long corridor that stretched away in front of him, as far as he could see. The corridor was so wide that a car could easily have been driven along it. The walls were pale pink. The lighting was soft and pleasant. How lovely and warm, whispered Charlie. I know, and what a marvellous smell, answered Grandpa Joe, taking a long, deep sniff. All the most wonderful smells in the world seemed to be mixed up in the air all around them. The smell of roasting coffee, the smell of melting chocolate, the smell of melting chocolate mints, and violets, and crushed hazelnuts, and apple blossom, and caramel, and lemon peel. And far away in the distance, from the heart of the great factory, came a muffled roar of energy, as though some monstrous, gigantic machine was spinning its wheels at breakneck speed. Now this, my dear children, said Mr. Wonka, raising his voice above the noise, this is the main corridor. Will you please hang your coats and hats on the pegs and then follow me That's the way, that's the way. Good. Everyone ready? Come on then, here we go. He trotted off rapidly down the corridor with the tails of the plum-coloured velvet coat flapping behind him, and the visitors all hurried after him. It was quite a large party of people when you came to think of it. There were 9 grown-ups and 5 children, 14 in all. So you can imagine that there was a good deal of pushing and shoving as they hustled and bustled down the passage, trying to keep up with the swift little figure in front of them. "Come on," cried Mr. Wonka, "get a move on. We'll never get round today if you dawdle like this." Soon he turned right off the main corridor into another slightly narrower passage. Then he turned left. Then he turned left again. Then he turned right. Then he turned left. Then he turned right. Then he turned left, right, left, right, left, right. Then he turned left. The place was like a gigantic rabbit warren, with passages leading this way and that way and every direction. "Don't let go of my hand, Charlie," whispered Grandpa Joe. "Notice how all these passages are sloping down towards..." called out Mr. Wonka. "We are now going underground. All the most important rooms in my factory are deep down, below the surface." "Why is that?" somebody asked. "There wouldn't be nearly enough space for them on top," answered Mr. Wonka. "These rooms we are going to see are enormous," in italics. "They're larger than football fields. No buildings in the world would be big enough to house them. But down here, underneath the ground, I've got all the space I want. There's no limit, so long as I hollow it out." Mr. Wonka turned right. Then he turned left. Then he turned right again. Then he turned left. The passages were sloping steeper and steeper and steeper and steeper downhill. Then, suddenly, Mr. Wonka stopped. In front of him, there was a shiny metal door. The party crowded round. On the door, in large letters, it said, "The Chocolate Room." And that's all we've got time for today. So I hope you enjoyed reading along with me today. We will be back tomorrow to read chapter number 15. If you want to do a little project for yourself at home this afternoon, we would love to see a chocolate bar that you would design. What would it look like? What ingredients would it have inside of it? What would it taste like? And perhaps more importantly, what would it do if you ate it? Would it have any magical properties? Yeah, we want to see some posters of your magical chocolate bars. Get your parents to send them to me and my friends, and we'll put them up on my Facebook page. Woohoo! Okay, so until tomorrow, stay safe, be kind, and keep smiling.